I doubt that it'll get any worse. I don't think the improvement is going to be very substantial so long as Noriega's there. And Noriega will be there as long as either he's alive or the military support him. Yes.
I was curious what overtures your department has been making towards Paraguay in light of the changeover in regimes and the belief that General Rodriguez will be elected on May 1st, and considering that Paraguay is increasing in the drug business.
Well, Paraguay is a little bit like Haiti in that we have provided assistance to non-governmental groups in Paraguay. We have a very good relationship with the people of Paraguay, and we have a fairly substantial program in Paraguay. Because Paraguay has stronger institutions than many of the countries we're talking about, it has not involved large amounts of U.S. funds, but our influence has been very substantial, particularly among the poor people and particularly among the small micro-entrepreneurs. So our policy, at least as it was when I left it, was to continue and to some extent increase what we've already been doing in Paraguay, where we've got very good relationship. Haiti's another country. We helped the Haitians get ready for the elections, which was very successful insofar as the voting on the Constitution was concerned. And then when it came time to elect their leaders, as you know, the military shot up the place, killed a number of people at the polling places. 10 minutes after we got word of that, I suspended all aid to the government of Haiti, but I continued and slightly increased, would have liked to have increased it more, the assistance to non-governmental groups in Haiti, which is still the case today. I had dinner with the ambassador, the Haitian ambassador, Saturday night. I found that fairly encouraging. I'm just a little bit optimistic toward Haiti. Not a lot, but a little bit. Yes?
Do the funds that the U.S. provide go towards, are some of the programs more of a grassroots? Do the local towns get much control of the funds, or is it all basically handed down from the government and all the programs or from the national government in the country?
No, a major part of it either goes to the small organizations or individuals or goes to the government as a pass-through. Now, there's some things which that's not true. So the funds in the economic stabilization do go to the government so that they can procure materials such as oil that are needed for production, needed to produce jobs. But a major part of the economic assistance and development assistance goes to these micro-entrepreneurs we're talking about, and health organizations, PVOs, private voluntary organizations working in educational areas. Yes?
What's the vision of the international policy of America related to the control of narco-trafficking? Source the value, cultural value of these needs in...
policy toward the what?
I mean, what's the vision of the policy, American policy, towards respect the cultural value that the coca needs has in specific regions such as Bolivia or Peru or Ecuador? Just the policy is trying to cut the production of these crops, but there are some attitude.
Well, the policy, yeah, there are several elements to the policy. One is of course the interdiction to interdict the flow of coca leaves, and if that's not interdicted, the flow of cocaine. We don't have enough resources to do that very effectively, but that's part of it. The other is the eradication, helping the farmers who eradicate. Third is helping them find another source of income, and the fourth is the education program I talked about. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, in some way, because I'm Bolivian.
Yes.
And I know what's the situation. Sometimes the vision of try to implement or try to arrange some international policy is the vision of eradicate cultives of coca, crop production of coca. But sometimes the real value is something more. It's cultural also, the consume of coca in my region.
Yeah.
And we respect this kind of value because the production of coca is not just for produce cocaine. We have the production as cultural value as in other places. For example, in China, the Chinese respect the use of rice. We respect the consumption of coca as leaf, not as cocaine.
Well, yeah, that's an important distinction. We serve in our embassy in La Paz coca tea. I drink it when I go down there. The coca leaf is actually helpful when you're at those high altitudes. So there is traditional use of coca in terms of the coca leaf, which is what he's talking about, and that is permitted to continue. But the illicit use of it, which is to produce cocaine and crack and paste, is what the Bolivians have declared illegal. Yes.
How do you justify so much foreign aid when the national budget is in such a deficit situation? And what things do you think are most important to aid? What countries?
Yeah. How do we justify aid when we have such serious budget problems here in the United States, which is a very good question. I'd say a couple of things. First of all, as I said earlier, it is important to put it in context in that the portion of our budget devoted to economic assistance has steadily declined. It's much smaller than it used to be. Secondly, it's much smaller than most other advanced countries. We are not helping other countries in proportion to our income to the extent that most advanced countries are. But the other side of that coin is it's also to our selfish interest. It's to our selfish interest. Most of the opportunity for exports in the United States, increased exports, and the jobs that go with those exports are in the developing countries. But that potential for exports and U.S. jobs is not going to exist so long as they have, as they're poor, as long as they have economic instability. They've got to increase their capacity to purchase if we're going to be able to export to them. Secondly, I think it's very dangerous for us to not try to do what we can to help these countries deal with the cocaine problem and the terrorist problem, because that has a spillover effect, potential spillover effect throughout the Western Hemisphere. Finally, there are diseases which are threaten U.S. agriculture, pests which threaten U.S. agriculture, which we need to provide help to these countries. The medfly, for example, which threatens fruit. We have a barrier which is funded by the United States. It's right across Guatemala now. Well, that's not very popular in Guatemala. There are a number of other diseases, if time permitted, I'd go into. But we have another aspect of it is the research which is done on corn in Mexico, the research that's done on beans and in Colombia on bananas. The banana industry is threatened with extinction, and unless the research we're supporting in Honduras is successful over the next few years, the commercial banana industry will become extinct. So there are a number of reasons, I think, very strong reasons, apart from I hope that we have some reservoir of compassion toward our neighbors that have serious problems. Yes?
From your description, it seems that it's almost impossible to reduce supply in a very adequate way. Don't you think that the emphasis should be given to the demand side, to reduce the demand for
Oh, I think the demand side is extremely important. I think it's important that everyone realize that what is happening to the people in the Andean countries the corruption that the narcotics have caused, the impetus it's given to some of the guerrilla groups because it feeds funds into guerrilla groups. What it's done in terms of ruining the health of young men and women in the Andean countries, what it's done to the fabric of a number of their communities, is caused solely by the demand in the United States, not by the demand in those countries, because it didn't exist, didn't even exist until the industry began to develop to feed the appetites of the United States. But we have caused tremendous misery. We have caused the loss of many, many lives in these countries because of the demand of the United States. This demand in the United States is an extremely important component because all the eradication, all the interdiction of the world is not going to succeed unless there is a curb on the demand, and also unless the education program in the Andean countries as well as the United States takes on a whole new dimension of urgency.
One more question, I think, maybe, and then
Right.
we will have squeezed our friend Mr. Ing.
All right?
You talked about the guerrillas in Latin America.
Yes.
Being involved with the drug trade.
Yes, now I should make clear, that's not uniformly true. It's really not true yet in Bolivia. It is very much true in Peru. It's true to some extent in Colombia, but it's increasing.
I guess my point was going to be, though, that although you mentioned them, you didn't say anything about U.S. government involvement with drug trade. I want to make just two quick comments
Yes.
on this. First, I want to go back a few years. I worked in Laos from 1969 to
Mhm.
1974
Uh-huh.
with voluntary services.
Yes.
A lot of people in my organization later go and work for USAID. And I remember one day running into one Pat, and he'd just come back from being out in the bush over a long time. I asked him what he'd been doing. He said, well, we had to move a group of Hmong Hill tribesmen. Now, as you know, the Hmong Hill tribesmen comprise the CIA Army in Laos. And that's well known and documented. And he mentioned that when he moved the Hmong Hill tribesmen down, they also had to move their opium crop along with them as part of the arrangement. Opium was a primary basis of power in Southeast Asia at the time. Here we have this, and I heard this from many sources, besides just this one person, but there seems to have been very direct CIA involvement with drug trafficking in Southeast Asia. And now we have another group of mercenary army called the Contras, and there's a lot of talk about them having been involved in the drug trade, cocaine trade in Latin America. And also now there's a lot of allegations coming out about Bush and other top officials that have known about this.
Well,
I guess my
I'm
first
not,
comment is not necessarily whether you agree with all
Yeah.
that or not, but you didn't even bring it up. It is a
Well, the
topic.
reason I didn't bring it up is because I've never seen any evidence of it occurring. It doesn't mean that there isn't some evidence, but no one's been able to find it yet. Now, that's not true in Laos, but I'm not too familiar with Laos, but I've heard enough to suspect that that could be the case. I've not seen any evidence of it with respect to the Western Hemisphere or with respect to the Contras. And by the way, I'm very dissatisfied with both the executive branch and the Congress in terms of the whole Contra issue. I don't agree with either one of them, but that's not my area. Thank goodness.
Well,
I
thank
think
you
we've
very
run
much.
out of time.
And please return